ओ नमः पाणिनिकात्यायनपतञ्जलिभ्यः शब्दविद्यासम्प्रदायकर्तृभ्यः परमर्षिभ्यः गुरुभ्यो गुरुभ्यः जय गुरुदत्त. At the outset, I offer my obeisance and respects to all the distinguished audience gathered for this event, and I'm really enthused by the response to some of the presentations here on the podium. I have been asked to speak on the subject Vyakarana Vedangam. I did not give the preliminary introduction to Veda or Vedanga, as we are all aware. If Vedas are conceived as an embodiment, then the place of Vyakarana would be mouth. Mukham Vyakaranam Proktam. We are all very much aware of the fact that mouth is the one important organ in the body which gives nourishment to the entire body. And it is also equally important to note that mouth is the key point of our speech. So Vyakarana has twin advantages and twin aspects of significance. With this to say, let us see what Vyakarana stands for. Vyakurute. Vi an iti upasarga dvajapurvaka dukraikarane dhatoho karane lyiti pratyaya sati Vyakaranam iti shabda nishpatyate. Vi is the upasarga, am is the upasarga. Vi means viseshataha or vaividhyena. Am means asamantat, in entirety. Kurute, it is making a language stand on its own. That is Vyakarana. The system which makes a language which stands for it. In other words, the entire language stands on its framework, and it should have the extendability, scalability, and support the entire architecture. That verb is called Vyakarana. That system is called Vyakarana. Because in this IT age, we always talk of scalability and expandability. Vyakarana is also the Matrika. Matrika is, it's a sort of mother. What was the precedence of Vyakarana and what are its systems? And how it unifies the entire Vedic culture. This is one important aspect to be considered by us. As we have heard some of the Vedic chants, there are many words which are sometimes confounding to a normal Sanskrit student. Patati didyunnaryasya bahuvor mate. Patati is the normal word, patle patane. Patati, but it says patati, and similar words are differently pronounced, differently derived. The etymology might be the same, but what are the root verbs that are to be considered? That is the point where Vyakarana steps in. As we have been observing, there are several wars just based on the language. As recently as in Georgia, say in this decade only, there was a huge conflict between the Russian immigrants from the neighboring Belarus region and the native Georgian population. This is the erstwhile Soviet Union. Why I am quoting this is, there have been many language wars even in our own Karnataka state as well as Tamil Nadu. When you say Tamil or Kannada, there is some animosity. But the typicality of Georgian language as I gather is, it functions on a string of consonants, hal, vyajanas, without a vowel which binds them. Without a h, there is a string of consonants which makes any normal sane person who is unexposed to that language, he will just squirm in his seat and he will scratch his head. How to pronounce this? When we look at many languages in the Eastern European, Polish, etc., we get such feel that it's virtually impossible for anyone to pronounce this. So the language framework should be scientific, methodical. In the absence of that, what happened? The Russian immigrants have refused to study that language in the school. That was the root cause of the entire malaise. Then the tensions have, actually they were scaled up and there was a full-fledged war. Finally, the Russian immigrants, with the backing of mighty Russian Federation, they had won the reprieve and they were on their own. This is a recent example. How to unify the entire language structure and at least identify the uniqueness in each of them, and what is the binding factor? That would be a very good example for us to consider at this point. As I have told you, there are 3 or 4 systems. Normally the entire Vyakarana goes by the notion that Lakshya is first followed by Lakshana. This is the common belief anywhere. If you ask us which came first, whether the language came first or its grammar came first, if we say that, people start talking in their own languages or with their own native tongue. After some time, to find the common ground between different languages or different wordings or dialects and usages, the seniors of that clan or of that generation, they sit together and they write some sort of common rules. These rules are followed by exceptions. And when the rules and exceptions are becoming too problematic, then there is a system called Pratipada Grahana. That is the normal routine followed by the grammatical systems all over. In spite of its weaknesses and deficiencies, if English is ruling the entire world, what is the reason? That also we should consider. Because it has scalability and adjustability. It can accommodate any number of words, any number of words, n number of words. That is the reason everyone takes liberty in English. You need not be surprised to find some Sanskrit words or some Telugu words or Hindi words in the next edition of Oxford Dictionary or Webster's. We need not be surprised. But why Sanskrit seems to be lagging behind? That is also one point to be considered. Traditionally, we have the belief and conviction that Sanskrita is Deva Bhasha, which cannot be altered, which should not be tampered with, and you should always follow the same systems. Any presentation to modify the presentation, I don't mean the actual tampering or tinkering with this structure, but a presentation to make it more simplifying factor would always be frowned upon by traditional scholars. That may also include me also, that's a different case. But the fact that the Vyakarana is conceived on such a scale that it is ultra flexible, it can be adjusted to accommodate any number of nouns, any number of verbs. With the help of two spirited grammarians, you find any word which is pronounced with these 53 or 46 or 64 syllables, we can certainly derive that form. In our student days, we used to undertake this exercise. One person used to get, okay, please derive the word Mary. Please derive the word Allah. Or what about Simpson? What about Kamal Hassan? Similar verbs which are totally unconnected with this Vedic culture, that's what we agree. We used to find answers to each of them. I will just give one more which is more recent or relevant to the audience. What is the word Pujari? We always heard this. We always heard this word. If you ask anyone who is a Pujari, normally any Sanskrit scholar will say, Pujayaha Arihi Pujarihi. What does this mean? Enemy of the puja is called Pujari. Is it not? But with the right mindset and with the supporting intention, I can put it the other way. Puja eva raihi yaske saha. Raihi is sampat, wealth. One who considers the puja as his wealth, he is called Pujarihi. Puja eva raihi yaske saha Pujarihi. How does it happen? Rai, echa ik hrasva deshe, Rai becomes ik, that means hrasva. Then as you have upaguhu, similarly, that is echa ik hrasva deshe, the same sutra will prod you to think that Pujarihi is the one who considers puja as his wealth. That is the level of interpretations that can be made. As I said, how do you call Kamal? There is no such word. Kamalaha, Kamalaha, Athava Kamale, Kamale iti Achakshanaha will become with the kvip suffix pratyaya, it will become Kamal. Similarly, we used to undertake similar exercises. Prasham. How does it happen? Shamadhatuhu becomes Sham, Sham with the Upadhadirgha. Similarly, that extendability and flexibility is provided in the structure of Vyakarana. That is the reason why it has stood the test of time, that I would like to emphasize here. Next comes, how is Vyakarana functional? I did not elaborate more on this aspect because most of you are aware of the structure of Vyakarana. It is Prakriti Pratyaya Vibhaga. This Prakriti Pratyaya Vibhaga is not unique to Vyakarana. Those traditionalists, including me, who believe that Vyakarana is the matrika for the entire language structure in the entire world, they don't have second thoughts. Even for others, Sanskrit, Samskrita provides the impetus to think on this Prakriti Pratyaya Vibhaga. What is the root verb? Everyone, you ask any grammarian, first he will ask, what is the root verb? Sarvan dhatu jamaha shakatasya tokaha. Tokaha is the santanam, as the progeny. The progeny of Acharya Shakata is none other than Shakatayana, the great grammarian. Shakatayana has averred that everything is based on the dhatu structure, the root verb. Suppose there is a conflict between two groups. Each of them thinks that his language is totally different from the others. How can you unify them? That is one question. The second one is, suppose if there are two Vedic scholars who think that their shakha or their system is superior than the others, how can you identify them? Vyakarana provides a basis for this. First you identify the root dhatu. Then what are the suffixes? Let me give one example about Kannada, Telugu, Samskrita. You call translation as Anuvada. In Kannada you call it Anuvadisu. In Telugu you call it Anuvadinsu. Anu is the upasarga. Vadam jaktayam vachi is the root verb. Insu, isu, these are the two verbs that are little different than Samskrita. Anuvada. Similarly, you find any number of words which stand on this platform. Hence, whenever there is a conflict, let us try to identify the prakriti, the root verb. Conflict necessarily does not mean physical, it can be verbal also, or differences in thought process also. The best thing what we should do is, what is the root verb in it? Actually, there is a philosophical meaning also which always I attribute. Prakriti and Pratyaya constitute a verb. Prakriti is the root verb. With Krutadhyata Samasascha, Krutpratyaya or Tadhyata Pratyaya, it becomes a Subanta. And if you add Krutpratyaya, when you add, it will become a Subanta. Then when you add Tadhyata Pratyayas, it will become, or other vrittis, it will become another Subanta. So, Subanta will have many derivatives of Subantas. Similarly, you have many derivatives of one dhatu. Let me give one example of Samvaada, which is the title of our this thing. Samvaada. Sam is the Upasarga, Vadam Yaktajam Vachi. Then you have the Ghai Pratyaya, then it will become Samvaada. I am not, since paucity of time, I am not explaining the entire structure, I am just give a brief outline. What is Vadana? Uchyate Atra. Either you can have it as Lyud Pratyaya, Karane Lyud, or Uchyate Anena, Karane Lyud, or Adhikarane Lyud, it will become Samvadana. Samvada, Samvadana. Then you have many other suffixes as Samvadi, Samvadasya. You have many Supratyaya you can add, or you can add any other Tadhyata Pratyayas. We will have a number of other derivatives. This is one way of looking at the unifying factor in each language and each word. As I have previously quoted, Patati, Asati, Chandasya Datau, there is one sutra. Because there are many number of Veda Shakhas. The essence of the mantra will remain the same, which we should always remember. Yat Purusham Yadadhu Katitha Vyakalpajan Mukham Kemasya Bahu Ka Guru Pada Uchyete is Yajurveda. Yat Purusham Yadadhu Katitha Vyakalpajan Mukham Kemasya Bahu Ka Guru Pada Uchyete. This is Rigveda. Let us examine the differences between the two. Yat Purusham Yadadhu is Yajurveda. Yat Purusham Yadadhu. Why it has happened? Yadvrti is one important factor in the entire Vedic literature. Wherever there is a Yadvrti, the Tingha Tingha Sutra, which gives the Sarvadatta, will not be applicable. Then it will be either Antodata or Adyudatta. Then Adadhu. It has become like this. Katidha Vyakalpajan Mukham Kemasya Bahu Ka Guru Pada Uchyete Ka Guru Kau Uru Ka Guru. This is the Echoyavayavaha Sutra. Yantamata Desha, we call it. But in Rigveda what happens? Ka Uru Pada Uchyete. Kau Uru Pada Uchyete. How did it become? Kau Uru has become Ka Uru. In Yajurveda it is Ka Vuru. Why does it happen? Please come back to the Vyakarana part of it. There is a sutra called Lopa Shakalgisya. Vyor Lagu Pragataraha Shakataginasya. See, the Vyakarana structure has made it possible that you can attribute one sutra according to the context. In Rigveda you have got other Ajavadesha Sandhisthalas, they are there. But accordingly, wherever you have such reference, you should apply this. In Vyakarana we have got another system called the Matam. Matam is the opinion. In the opinion of Shakatayana it will happen. In the opinion of Shakalya it will vanish. Ka Uru means it has vanished. When Vyor Mahu Pragataraha, it has become Ka Vuru. Similarly, 3 or 4 systems are adopted. And what is the difference? Now, it is also relevant to point out the system of Pratishakya at this juncture. Pratishakya is the text relevant to the particular Vedic branch. It is not all pervasive. Pratishakam. Shakham, Shakham, Pratishakam, 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 Pratishakyam. So, the Vyakarana system in general deals with all the Veda Shakhas, including the Swara systems. if there are any specific words which are instances which are not applicable, then you should always go to the Pratishakhya. Pratishakhya, more or less, it deals on the system of Pratipada Grahana. You have got something called Alopa Lopa. Alopa Lopa. You all know the first stanza of Rudradhyaya. Namaste Rudra Manyave Uto Takishabhe Namaha Namaste Astu Dhanvane. When you go to any Mahalakshmi Stotra, it will say Namaste Astu Mahamaye. Why has it become Namaste Astu is not joined, it is separate. It is maintaining its separation. Why is it? That is the Alopa system. But if you ask any grammarian, how do you support Namaste Astu? There is a Prakriti Bhava, there is no Sandhya. How do you support it? He will not have an answer for it. For that you have to approach the Lakshana Shastranya or the Pratishakhya scholar who will answer it. In the Yajurveda it is Astvakronot, Angirom Suyo Aska Bhagat, Ashishretange, and here it is the Pratishakhya Sutra. Astu Akronot. When these are preceded by Ekara or Okara, they are not joining. So this is the typicality of Pratishakhya, which always see Purva Rupa Sandhi, which makes Namaste Astu, is not applicable here. Why? Because Astu Akronot is the specific verbs which have been Ashishret, Ange, Andhiga, Ange. These are the verbs which are Pratipada Grahana. They have been specifically mentioned that these verbs will not attract the normal sutra. Sometimes it will happen like this. There is a general rule, say you should join. Then there is a Apavada which says no, you should not join. Then there will be another exception which will say you can join. Then there is a special exception to that exception itself which will make it impossible. And there will be the fifth one factor which says no, at this juncture in Vilama you have to join it. I will give one example to you. Anugavo Nubhaga Kaniraam Anuvrata Sastava Sakhyami Yuhu Anudeva Mamire Viryam Anugavaha Gavono Anubhagaha. This is the normal verb. Lukine Akara Ekara Akara Purvaha is the general context which says Akara will get dissolved or it will not be there. Lopa Atashanam Lopaha. Then they say Dhatara Tirupavajapeki Justashkena Japsha, it is list. In this Vihavya mantras, you will not get joined. What happened? Gavaha Anu has not joined. Okay. Then I have got another sutra. This is third level. It says Yavanaha Parasvara Pareshu Yavanaha. If the Akara is followed by Yavanaha, it will get joined. And there is another exception which is called Svara Pareshu. Only when the Ach is Para, it is followed, then only you will get. Then what will happen? Typically, I will give this instance. Anugavo Gavo Anvanugavaha. This is the Viloma Patha. Gavo Anvanugavo Gavonu. It is the same Anu verb which is get joining in the Viloma Patha, whereas in the Prakriti it is not joined. So, the rules, exceptions. This is the structure followed by Vyakarana. But the Pratipada Patha of taking each verb is more prevalent in the Pratishakhya system. Now, how is the Vyakarana structure? And what is the speciality of the current system that we are all following, the Bharateeya system? This is another aspect. As we all know that there were 9 systems of Vyakarana, Aindra, Chandra, Kashapatsana, etc. Apishali, Shakhaina. Yes. And how the earlier system was that you list the entire verbs, verbatim, all the verbs. Suppose if you want to know the Rama Shabda, instead of giving it 7 supratyayas and 21 pratyayas, you will list out all the Rama Shabda, you will have 21 derivatives. Krishna Shabda, you will have 21. If it is Krishna Mukunda, then you will have Krishna Mukunda Shabda, you will have these many derivatives. So what will happen? Divya Varasha Shatam Upadesham Krutvapi Nantam Jagama. Bruhaspati Acharya has given the entire list of all the verbs that are possible to be derived from the root verbs. Even after 100 years of Divya Varshas, the list could not be completed. That is the exhaustiveness of the language. Then, with less than 4,500 sutras, Panini has derived a system that is called Ashtadhyagi. With these many systems, we don't claim, no Vyakarana grammarian dare to claim that the Paninian system is perfect. No one will claim. In fact, they have a master escape clause. Akrutam yuha Paniniyaha nimittam vinasham muhadrashpat prakritam karyam na kurvanti. If you think that the process entire for which you are struggling, it is destroying the root cause, then they will not do it. They will just leave it out. Okay, don't worry about it. You leave this class. Akrutam yuha Paniniyaha. But one blemish will never deter or never denigrate the structure. The structure is so great and so huge. Even if there are some ekopi doshaha gunasannipate nivachiti indoha kiraneshvarantah. If there are even one or two blemishes, you don't worry about them. You please look at the beauty of the entire structure, how it is supporting the entire language system in the entire universe. That is the importance of Paniniya Vyakarana system. And finally, how the Aindra Vyakarana was derived. For that also, you all aware of this verse from the Saubhika Brahmana. When there was a conversation between Devatas and Indra has demanded something else. I want a specific combination of Somarasa with me and Vayu. Then the deities or the devatas have requested, please structure the language. He has agreed. Tamindra madhyata akramya vyakarot tasmadiyam vyakruta vagudyate tasmaat sakradindraya madhyata grhyate virvajavedvau hi samara avranita. At the outset it seems that it's a legend or it's a story. But let us consider what is Indra and what is Vayu. That is very much central to the theme of this presentation. What is Indra? Normally we say he is the lord of three universes, Trilokadipati or Suradhipati. We will have that. But in my thesis I had deliberately broached upon this subject. Who is Indra? Idi Paramaishwarya is the dhatu. Rak Pratyaja, it will become Viditam Dhatoha. Indra is the word derived. But what exactly is Indra? Paramaishwarya means the wealth of paramountcy, which can be never surpassed. Who can that be? Indra, if Indra is limited to just one loka or one clan or just one period, he cannot be Paramaishwaryavan. Then who is Indra? Indra is none other than the Atma, the Paramatma. How can I say that? There are innumerable instances in Yajurveda which prove this point. Indra is not just, and Indra Majabhe Pururupa Igate. Indra is not the Indra one whom you think of Ahalya Shapa Mabachana Gautama Katha. Indra is the Paramatma. See, you have got several systems. You are the Lord, will say, oh, you are all important on this stage. If I am important, for this context, it's all contextual only. But Indra essentially here means it is none other than the Atman. And who is Vayu? Atma Buddhya Sametartha Mano Yukte Vivakshaya Maya Kaya Nimahanti Saprayaragati Marutam Marutas Torasicharam Mandram Janagati Swaram. This is the genesis of a word getting derived. How do you utter a word? How do you pronounce it? And why should you deploy such word? What happens first? Panini Maharshi has beautifully given us the listed out the Anukrama. Atma Buddhya Sametya Arthat Mano Yukte Vivakshaya or Arthan Manaha Yukte Vivakshaya. The Atman, Pratyag it will deploy the mind to deploy such a verb. It will depute the mind to deploy such a verb to bring out this sort of meaning. That is the subtleness. Sab prayaragati marutam. Then, in turn, the mind, the manas, instigates the prana vayu which is inside us. The prana vayu is always the one which comes out. Normally, hrudya pranaha, udayapanaha, this is the normal thing, what we think. But Yajurveda specifically says, apana is the one which is filling up your body. Apana is the vayu which is filling up your body. That is why when they say, when you take the dakshina, what should you be doing? Dakshinam pratigrahishyan saptadasha krutvopaanyat. Whenever you take something from someone else as dakshina, as a gift, you should be doing the pranayama 17 times. Saptadasha krutvaha apanyat. Atmana bheva samindhe. When you take something from anyone, your hand is always down. It is on the downside. And you are losing some of your virtues and some of your vigor in this process of exchange. Then how do you replenish it? The replenishment will be possible only by Saptadasha Kritvaha Pranayama, the 17 times of Pranayama. Then he says, Apanyat means you have to replenish yourself. How do you replenish it? The oxygen or the pranavayu is replenished only by 17 times of Pranayama. So, the pranavayu which is inside, it gets out. When it gets out of the body, it is called the pranavayu. That is why Yajurveda always says, Saptavishir Shanya Prana. There are 7 points out of which the vayu can get out, the air can get out of your body. What are the Saptashir Shanyas? Mouth, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 2 eyes. These are the 7 Sapta Prana. These are Sapta Pranasthanas. That does not mean that, but you can only inhale through the mouth or the nostrils. Only this sthana you can get in. But there are 7 points out of which the vayu can go out. So let us come back to the main subject. Indra Vayu. The Indra and Vayu also always have to be together. That is why the Indra, Atma has requested the deities. Okay, hereafter I will handle the Vayu. Mano yukte vivakshaya. Manah kaya nivahanti. The manas instigates the Vayu. And which in turn comes out of the stomach first, Hridisthana, Kanthasthana. And you have got Bahya Prayatna and Abhyantara Prayatna. These are also enumerated in the Siksha Shastra as well as Vyakarana. Abhyantara Prayatna means inner. Bahya Prayatna is outer. Exactly, people get confused, tend to confuse. What is Bahya Prayatna? Outside the mouth there is no effort at all. How can you make an effort? Once the wind comes out, it is totally out of your control. Then what is Bahya Prayatna? Bahya Prayatna should not be construed as given external to the mouth or face. Bahya Prayatna is something, because the Abhyant first, for that if you say it is external, then first you should actually define what is internal. When you say it is internal, from the tips of our lips, Kaluka, till this this first point of the throat, Jihva Bola, that is called the internal part. External to this is not outside the face. That is inner than the internal part. Abhyantara is from this part to the tips of the lips. But which is outside this ambit is called Bahya Prayatna. What is it? The Bahya Prayatna is the voice box. So, Abhyantara Prayatna, Bahya Prayatna. So, why it happens like this means, once you want to utter a word or a syllable, you will properly deploy the organs in your mouth. If it is where it should be generated, what is the part that should be deployed to generate such a word, and the